Take a Ride podcast. I'm your host here, Starks. You can find me on my Twitter handle. It's at Starks_industry. You can also find me on Instagram, One Closing Hero. I'm not here alone this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be in the fantasy world. I have the combo guard running the two, Jacob, the White Knight. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, brother. God has blessed me with another day, so I can't complain. Thank you.
Awesome, man. And not only Jacob, but we have the wingman running the three, LT the Sage. How you doing today, brother?
Doing good. 3 to the dome for Mello. You already know what it is. We back in business, kind of. If there's some technical difficulties with this one, let's excuse our deaths and appreciate all the love from you fans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we are trying to get back on the YouTube channel. We had some technical difficulties, and we might have some in this episode. But ladies and gentlemen, bear and hang in there with us. We're going to actually start changing the dynamic of the podcast anyway as well. So in this episode in particular, we are going to talk about some surprising teams this year in fantasy that could be changes and implications on players and those players on your team, and it could change. And then we'll also go into a segment of juicing an orange on a player. And we won't have time to touch up on listener questions, but we will at least get on the clutch shot. But as you guys can see, we're back on the YouTube channel. So subscribe at the YouTube channel, Sub-Zero style. And then make sure you guys comment below. Not only comment below, but hit that dinner bell to keep that bell going whenever we drop an episode, and as well as give us a thumbs up. It helps us to keep this going on a daily basis. And the website, newlifefantasy.com, join as a member and be a part of the mailing list. That way you can look at the forums and stuff of that nature. And we have articles one of the latest articles of Blake Griffin's Regression that's coming. And just be on the lookout for that. So with that being said, I'm ready to take people on for a ride. And Jacob, I'll pass you the ball on a couple of surprise teams this year, man.
Yeah, so in the West, we wanted to touch up on a few teams. There's at the top, we can't go without saying the Los Angeles Lakers. They've been looking like world beaters so far. And as for me, I mean, I'm a LeBron fan. I like to see him succeed, and so to see him start out 18-3 is pretty cool. He's a good guy and he's a great player. He does everything right. So I mean, it's great to see that. It's great to see him and AD just balling out over there. So I'm going to pass the rock to you there, Starks. What do you think about the Lakers?
Yeah, the Lakers, and it's one of those things, I'll be honest, I was definitely surprised. They have a good record this season currently right now. I mean, obviously you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis, so you would think your team would be good already as it is. But to have this type of record right now, what are they, LT? Is it 18-3 right now, is my understanding?
Yes, 18-3. Yes, sir.
So, seeing that it's one of those two-edged swords. And what I mean by that, and at least in a fantasy perspective, that you can look at if they continue to be on a hot streak. Obviously, it's still early in the season. We're about 25% of the season done in NBA, and you can even also consider that in fantasy. So if they are head and shoulders above most of the West, you can expect load management to be in the face of the GMs and owners of those that have LeBron or Anthony Davis, right?
True.
So that could be an issue when you come into your fantasy playoffs. And what we talk about, and if you're new to the podcast, what we try to advise to the listeners, that we have to be careful on the load management, or actually not the load management, of course that, but we have to be careful on what playoffs that you have. We want to try to advise you to set your fantasy playoffs about a week or two before the actual regular season to stop. And, if they were to be load management, what is important is, I mean, obviously it's a cheat code in the sense that we have to realize who the players could formulate on the Lakers to get run, because you can hold all the superstars you want in a redraft format. But to be honest with you, if they're not going to play, it's almost like they're going to be wasting time on your bench. Now, in the Dynasty format, it's a little bit more difficult because you're not going to drop superstars off your team, right? But in a redraft league, you might have to change your tune on it if a team is in a high rankings like the Lakers are. So I'll pass you the ball there if you want to talk about the Lakers there, LT.
Yeah, as far as the Lakers are concerned, they're a very top-heavy team. When you're thinking about redraft formats, category leagues, it's pretty much LeBron, Anthony Davis. Those are your two main guys there. Now, you do get some value from some of the other guys. Rajon Rondo is one of those guys that sticks out as probably a deep league dandy right now. But as far as this team specifically, there's going to need to be some injuries before you really are able to get some production from some of the lower tier guys. So if you have stock in anybody not named LeBron or Anthony Davis, just expect a little bit less from them because those two guys are pretty much the heavy hitters on this team. But you can still check out the White Knights articles. You can still find some people on there for some, give you some value on a weekly basis and on those back-to-backs specifically because you never know when that load management may come up later on in the season, as Stark stated. But that's all I got on the Lakers. They're killing the competition right now for sure, Starks.
Yeah, and just real quick, let me say this on top of that before I give you the ball, Jacob. So two players that come to mind, that was a good one to say, Rondo. Alex Caruso would be a guy that you can potentially consider during the playoffs in a fantasy format. That's if the Lakers are head and shoulders above everybody in the West that will get more minutes. And then even potentially, it's gross for me to say this, Kyle Kuzma, because they want to at least get those players that's coming off the bench to get the opportunity there, right? So that's important. And I think Jacob had talked about another guy here. Is it KCP? Is that right there, Jacob?
KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yeah, he could definitely be another player that can contribute basically in the playoffs in the fantasy format. That's if the Lakers are, like I said, again, they are safe and they're locked in for a top spot. But I'll pass you back the ball, Jacob, if there's anything else you want to say or get to the next team.
I like that. Caruso running the Caruso show, right? There you go. I like it, man. The Caruso.
Wait a second.
All right, I'm going to segue from there. We're going to talk about the Mavericks. We're going to hype up our boy Cool Hand Luka here, who has been just balling out and just willing his team to a 14-6 record. Right now, they're a 4th seed, and before the season they were always like a sleeper team that's like, oh, they're definitely gonna make the playoffs. I mean, they got Unicorn, they got Luka, they have a lot of depth, and so to see them go 14-6, especially on the road, they're 8-2 versus home they're 6-4. So it's really nice to see them get the job done at home and on the road. And I believe the first night, this is the first night that Porzingis is playing in back-to-back games because I believe he only played 18 minutes last game. So they believe that he could do the back-to-back, but that's great news for all Porzingis owners for sure. I'm going to pass ball to you there, LT. What do you think about the Mavericks? Do you think this can be sustained, or do you think it's just a fluke?
Nah, I would normally tell you that nothing can be sustained, but Luka, I am your father. I mean, Doncic, that's Luke Kennard, got me. Luka Doncic is just the guy. He is the man. And I don't know if you guys know this. This is kind of off fantasy topic, but I did not know he was 6'7". I did not know he was that tall. He plays, low to the ground. For him to be 6'7" and doing what he's doing to me is crazy. But that's probably how he's able to get those shots over some of the bigger defenders. But just to touch up on this, on the Mavericks in a fantasy perspective, using my sage eyes, there's a couple of people that you want to keep an eye on going into the later part of the middle part of your fantasy season. And two of those guys is Garlic Jr., right? Tim Hardaway Jr., as we call him, Garlic Jr. He is coming on as a scorer. So in points formats, you want to keep an eye out for him, as well as Seth Curry, the only Curry that matters. Actually, the only Curry that's playing.
Shut up.
But that's he is also ramping up his minutes and his shots. So again, we love seeing pumping up the volume. And I'll go ahead and just touch on one more guy, and that guy is Dorian Finney-Smith. And I know this is one of White Knight's favorites, but Dorian is actually getting a lot of minutes and a lot of run on every night. He is a cog in the Mavericks wheel. So he's always available. He's always getting those, I think, over 30 minutes. I can click on his, I can just click on him now. But yeah, so that is just great. You love to see about 27, 26 minutes per night. You love to see that consistency from Dorian. So I'm going to go ahead and behind the back pass the rack over to Starks. Anything you see on this Mavs team?
No, one thing I want to just mention is obviously they are definitely a surprise team this year, Dallas has, but obviously Luka has been the biggest story of why they've been so great this year. And the thing is, you would always be concerned about load management when a team is high in the rankings, but I think Luka's safe to be on the floor because it's at this point in time, I think, even in the regular season, since he may be pushing for the MVP discussions, I don't see him being benched this year. And honestly, load management, I'm not afraid to. Well, I'm just going to say he shouldn't have that load management tag on him at all this season. The only way he's going to be on the bench, I believe, is if he's hurt or sick or something personal. You know what I mean? So that's all I got for Dallas. But as far as load management, if it's anybody, is Porzingis. But I'll just say this again: Dallas is a surprise team, and I'll pass you back the ball, Jacob, on the next team there.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah. The next team is the Phoenix Suns. They are currently the 8th seed, and before the season started, I mean, like, they weren't given a shot by most people, like most pundits out there. They were just like, okay, it's another lost season, a rebuild, and hopefully they can be better in a couple years. Well, they're surprising a lot of people, even without Ayton, who is on suspension currently. Even though their record is still a losing record, I mean, it's weird to see the West so early, and it's like the 8th seed has a losing record, and the rest of the teams down that we'll talk about have a losing record, but it's still early. But the Suns are still doing well. So we know that has a lot to do with Booker. That has a lot to do with Oubre. But I'm going to pass the ball there to you, Starks. What do you think about the Suns team, and do you think this is sustainable?
I'm having some reception bad on my side. I will say this. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll say this about the Phoenix in particular. I don't know how sustainable this is, but I will say that I did mention I didn't think they would be a wasteland team this year. I do remember saying that before the season started. Now, do I think that could change and they could start diminishing a little bit? Potentially, but what the biggest surprise is to make me think a little bit different is your boy there, Jacob Oubre, and he's been a surprise this year. And he's one of the guys that has honestly helped Phoenix. It's not just been Rubio, right? And I know a lot of people were concerned about, they got so many guards. Why did they sign Ricky Rubio? But Rubio and Kelly Oubre has helped that team. And honestly, Oubre being a surprise this year, along with, obviously helping Devin Booker, that's beautiful. And then, like you said, Ayton is not even there yet. So when you have like a borderline record like that, you can always feel safe, at least to know that your players are going to be in the fantasy playoffs, right? As long as they're in the middle, and because they're going to fight for the playoffs, other than them just being a busted team. And I'll pass you the ball there, LT.
Definitely. Yeah, this team is definitely a surprise, and this is what they waited for, right? They picked up Ayton last year. They picked up Booker a couple of years ago, and they built this team. And Aaron Baines, where's the venom, as Lewis would say? He is a great surprise for them, even if he doesn't continue to start once Ayton comes back. Just the way he's played, you love to see him coming off the bench for this team. Same thing with Frank the Tank, and they're finding that a lot of these guys on their team are actually strong and solid contributors because, in order to actually compete, you got to have a bench, right? So just some of these guys being able to play at the top level is definitely a welcome surprise. As far as fantasy is concerned, this team specifically is also, to me, very top heavy. But once Aiden comes back, you're going to love to see Booker. You want to have that Aiden. And you're going to want those are the two. Kelly Oubre is also in the mix there as far as value. But then you have a couple guys that are high, very high streaming options. You have Frank the Tank, I'm sure you guys have witnessed recently. He went off. He's going off. And then Check Diallo, if he can actually get some playing time and get upwards of 20 to 25 minutes, as Starks mentioned in our last episode, he can also bring in the stat sheet. So I'm gonna pass the rock over to you. White Knight, anything else on here that you see as far as the Suns is concerned?
No, I mean, I just can't wait for Ayton to come back, and we'll definitely touch up on him later, because I definitely think he can put this team over the hump to actually stay in that 8 to 7 seed range. So it's going to be interesting.
And
go ahead, Starks.
Yeah, I was going to steal the ball too. One more thing is, just imagine it could have been Luka and Devin Booker on the same team, man. Phoenix passed on Luka. Just imagine what their record potentially could be. That's not to say Ayton is not good, because Ayton is definitely good. But just imagine that combo they could have had there, that nice little combo meal. And then just one more thing to keep in mind is Mikal Bridges, he's been struggling this year. Mm-hmm. So they do have talent there, but, they just wanted to mention that. But I'll pass you back the ball, Jacob, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's a great point. That's a great, what if scenario for sure. To think about. So next, I'm just going to pass the rock to LT on here. What is going on with your Blazers, man? The Blazers were always like a shoe-in to make the playoffs. I know it's early. Hey, before I say anything else, I'm just going to let you have the ball and say what's going on with those Blazers, bro.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll go ahead and take the rock on this one. Try to see if I can dunk it for you guys. So as far as the Blazers concerned, we ran into a lot of injuries, to be honest with you. Just to be honest, we ran into a lot of injuries. Zach Collins was supposed to be a cog to help us defensively, mainly. That's where most of our struggles are coming from. And Hezonja is Hezonja. He's been just he was coming in from Magic. I remember when I was first reading about him coming over, how he's a fan favorite, high energy guy, all this stuff, and he comes in and he's like laying eggs, man, like fresh ostrich eggs every game. Wow. And I'm just like, dude, what happened? Where was all this from? But what I will say is that we have some good youth. Our bench is very inexperienced, and that showed early on in the year. Our bench is very inexperienced. Last year, we had a lot more veterans, a lot more people who were in the NBA, knew how to get the job done. Desir Little, Anthony Simons. I'm not even going to talk about Tolly Oxenfree. Gary Trent. All these guys, they're young. They're just not ready yet. So as they get time underneath them, they'll be able to produce more wins, and I think we'll level out a little bit, especially with the addition of Melo. But it's to be honest with you, it's not about Melo, right? It's about these bench guys getting better and being able to provide on the second unit, because that's where we lost yesterday's game. Is Clippers' second unit is just way better than ours. So, but I will pass the rock over to you, White Knight. That's all I got, man. To give you an idea of what's going on.
I appreciate that insight, Starks. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
No, one thing I'll say about it is it's unfortunate that I do believe they'll get better, but even when they got Carmelo, that's when it kind of made me think a little different, that I don't know how much more they'll get better, adding him. So, and it kind of sucks because Portland, it's like they were making, gradual moves each year in the playoffs. And last year they made a massive move in the playoffs, right? But looking at their season this year is definitely a disappointment. But I don't know. It's obviously too early in the season. I definitely hope they get better, but I'll pass you back the ball there, Jacob.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, so this next team is a surprise that they're struggling so hard, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. We come to know them as a bankable top 5 seed, and great, Popovich's system, he can turn anyone into, a playoff team. And it just seems like ever since Kawhi Leonard forced his way out that they've just been struggling, like a sinking ship, and they don't have an answer right now. And, it's pretty sad to see, just because they've just been so dominant for years, and they've been doing it the right way. So saying that, I know it's still early, and they have a lot of young guns on their team, and they've been trying some different rotations out to see like what will work. But, it's fair to assume at 8-14 that, it's going to be tough to gain some ground in a tough Western Conference. So I'm going to pass the ball back. I'm going to pass the ball to you there, LT. What do you think about the Spurs? And, what are some fantasy implications that could happen as the season goes on?
Spurs, yeah, man. Thanks for that pass. The Spurs, this is a team you got to keep your eyes on, even though you don't want to, right?
Spurs, go!
You gotta keep your eyes on the Spurs because they're old, right? That is the main thing, and they're losing. So what does that mean? That means there's opportunity to be had later on after the mid part of the year. There's opportunity to be had on this team. And they need a changing of the guard, right? They got DeMar DeRozan. Look at these ages, man. Aldridge is 34. Belly up, my man. Belly up, 33.
Belly up, belly down.
Christmas Carol,
Retirement home over there.
33. DeMar, 30. Rudy Gay, 33. Patty Mills, 31. These guys are old, and it's time for them to start flipping those pancakes, right? Getting on the right side up and starting getting these new guys time. Forbes 100, right? He needs some time. See what he can do. DeJounte Murray, take the training wheels off. Popovich, take them off. Let them go. Let them fly. Blake Bortles. Jacob Portal. Whoops. Let's see what he can do in the post. Let's go.
Football, baby.
Let's go.
Football.
Let's go. Lonnie. Isn't Lonnie your guy, Starks? He just had a big game. Let him
Starks. Yeah,
that's a Starks Dynasty special.
Yeah,
let them fly. And that's, you got people in fantasy circles, you want to, in all circles, Dynasty, points, redraft, keep your sage eyes on these Spurs, and we'll see what shifts here near the middle to end of the year. But I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Starks.
Yeah, you already touched up. You tapped your toes in the waters there with me, and I think with the Spurs, you need to look at it like, this is why I was saying in the last episode, I'm being aggressive grabbing Lonnie Walker IV, just because of the Spurs' situation. And that's one thing. If there's a cheat code in fantasy, it's important to pay attention to the team's dynamic and their record, because that is going to be the young talent that can come out to do well. And it is going to be hard because we know how Popovich is, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like the young youth is just going to come out and fly. We want them to fly, but it's going to take some time. But that is one thing to look at. If they don't make the playoffs and they're really struggling, that's why I can think Lonnie Walker can formulate potentially this year. And I know that's a long shot, but that is the risk that you have to take if you're able to take it. But I'll pass you back the ball there, Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, that after that huge game where he kind of like overtook Bellinelli, hopefully he took his spot in the rotation, because I don't see Bellinelli making any noise. And Lonnie Walker proved that he has ice in his veins. So I really hope, for everyone's sake that picked him up, that he definitely gets some run here, if not more, as the season progresses, for sure. So the last team I wanted to touch up on is the almighty Golden State Warriors. They are coming in at a hot 4-19. They are currently on a 4-game losing streak. They are looking like a dumpster fire, and this is extremely. It's like a whiplash. Like, whoa, what just happened? Like they were just like the best team in history one year, and then the next year, probably the worst team in history. And I'm not trying to be, like silly about it. I mean, like they it's not looking good. It's looking good, though, for the young fantasy players who are wanting to play and getting those minutes, such as Poole, such as Bowman, such as, like, you name it, like, I'm going to pass the ball here to you there, Starks. Like, what do you think about the Warriors? Are they going to progress? Are they going to keep this tank job going? What do you think there, brother?
That plane, that ship has sailed this year. There's no turning around. Like, it's not happening this year, especially with that record they're looking at right now. This is definitely, if you guys love Christmas, I know there's a lot of people that either you love Golden State or you really dislike them. And honestly, for those that dislike them, are getting an early Christmas present this year for how they're performing this year in particular. Now, we are recording while games are going on, and Dwight Powell is headed to the locker room. I think his arm issue, so we'll keep you updated on that. But as far as Golden State goes, I guess, D'Angelo Russell and Draymond Green are supposed to play tonight. But for those fantasy GMs or owners that have those players, I will be honest with you, even in a redraft league, I would be very concerned if I owned them for this year. Now, honestly, in a dynasty format, you got to just bite the bullet and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. And we are recording still while games are going on. And it looked like Powell accidentally got hit by Porzingis, so that was the issue. But as far as Golden State goes, that's really it. So the dynamic is in the fantasy scheme of things, and Len is like, you mentioned Eric Pascal is potentially a player that is a good waiver wire pickup. Alec Burks is going to be pretty good. Kai Bowman, the bow tie man, Mr. Bow, he'll be okay. But you're going to get a lot of inconsistencies with that Golden State situation, and it's hard to stomach to say Glenn Robinson is worth a listen to. Kevon Looney was very limited coming off the bench tonight, but he's a guy that I think needs to be talked about too, and hopefully they let him get some minutes as the season progresses. But I'll pass you the ball there, LT.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth. Looney Tunes. I'm playing those tunes all day long. As our fantasy people know, I've been looking for a cheap big man, right? Starks your toast, by the way. I've been looking for your toast. I know you picked them up super early. Hey, your toast. Yeah, exactly. Shush. I bet. super toast. But I've picked them up in pretty much all of my leagues, thanks to Starks already swooping them up in one we're in together. But you just love those cheap big men, and they want to see what he can do, right? They want Kevon Looney. They want to produce him, get him ready, so that when all those superstars come back in, he's ready to go, right? He's had a year of just getting together, getting conditioned on a top level and playing, and they're going to play Looney, right? So that's the one guy that I'm interested in. Everybody else, it's like playing musical chairs, right? You never know who's going to produce. Burks, could it be Burks? Alec Baldwin, could it be Kai Bowman, right? Bow and arrow. That's right. Could it be Pool Shark, right? Hit eight ball quarter pocket, right? Quarter pocket. Could it be Glenn Robinson the third, right? Maybe he's better than the second. He's not, by the way. But basically, it could be any of those any given night, and you just don't know. So it's like it's kind of fun, but it's not, because it's fantasy and you want to win. So I mean, it's hard. It's hard right now. But the only guy that I'm really interested in long term is Looney. But everybody else, if you have Burks, look for streamings, look for more injuries coming, and go from there. I'll pass the ball over to you right now.
Absolutely, brother. I agree with both of you. So, yeah, that ends our segment of the surprise Western Conference teams there. So I'm going to pass the ball to you there, Starks, for our next segment.
Yeah, and one more thing before we get to the next segment that I want to mention about. I want to actually ask you guys a question. This is interesting. So let's look at it in a hypothetical redraft. I'll give you the redraft thought logic on that, LT, and then the points logic on you, Jacob, and then I'll kind of give a dynasty outlook. And I think this is interesting. So, Jacob, I'm going to pass you the ball here. Yep. Eric Pascal, where do you think he finishes at in a points league this year? Yeah,
I think Eric Pascal is like the only, one of the few safe players that the Warriors will consistently play 25 to 35 minutes. I can definitely see him finishing in a points league. He's a stone cold lock for top 100. I can definitely see that creeping up to somewhere between 50 and 75. So I'm going to go right in the middle there and go probably around like 65 or so. I can definitely see him finishing there because he will have all the opportunity in the world. He still scores, and he gets you, like a few snipes. He does get you some boards for sure, lucky stats, but it's mostly those points. So I'll say somewhere between 50 and 75 he'll end up there, Starks.
Nice. LT in the points league. Perfect. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. LT, where do you think he finishes at in the redraft league this year, man? What's your thoughts on him?
So Pascal, right? Yeah, he's actually, like White Knight said, one of the better players on Golden State.
Yeah, but
unfortunately, his production in a redraft format is not as heavy as in a points format. So in points formats, he's definitely more of a contributor. All you have to do right now, I have the averages pulled up. All you have to do is think about his steals, blocks, and rebounds, right? So his rebounds are pretty good. He's a forward, right? 5.4 on average this year, but he has 0.3 steals and 0.3 blocks averages, with almost 31 to 32 minutes played. So he's out there. He's getting some lucky stats every now and then, but he's not giving you those stock stats. He's not giving you those core, the side piece stats. Not even 2 assists. He's not even averaging 2 assists a game. And so it's one of those things where I think he ends up. I do think he ends up top 100, but definitely at the back end of that top 100. So somewhere in that area, if he can produce a little bit more in those other areas, I can see him get even in redraft formats touching in that top 75. But yeah, I'm thinking top 100. But he's definitely does more for you in points than redraft for category formats. Over to you, Starks.
That's a good breakdown there for sure for both of you guys. It's really hard in the redraft league. Points league, he's more tailored for that. And that makes sense of the breakdown of how you said that, Jacob, and LT the same in the redraft format. Dynasty is a little bit tougher just because of the players that's going to potentially come back next year. Right. But I think he's solidified a role in Golden State for all of the fruit they were trying to pick to see who could be the next decent guy in Golden State. We can assume that he solidified a role in a format of Dynasty too. So he's going to hold value. Now, to say this year, I think it is fair to say he's close to 100, but I would say maybe I'll juice the orange a tad bit and say maybe in the 90s potentially. So 90s to 100 this year, just because of like what you said, LT. He's not going to get you the steals and blocks. He's really poor in that space. He's got pretty good field goal percentages, free throw percentage as well for the type of size he is. The points is nice. And sometimes, I'll say this, he could potentially get you assists, but that's not going to be his MO because of how Golden State has D'Angelo Russell. Of course, he's going to be off and on. And then Draymond Green, he facilitates when he comes in the game. But I believe Eric Pascal could be a player that facilitates the ball a little bit. I think he's a little underrated in that. And if he was able to do that a little bit more, his value would jump up, more. But we'll get off of that. We'll start getting to the segment of juicing the orange, a new segment on pretty much players that I think each of us will talk about in particular on this episode. And the player I'm juicing the orange on for this season is Jamal Murray. Now, Jamal Murray has been a legitimate fantasy player for your team. And it comes on a little bit of the heels of Joker. Jokic has been struggling this year. So someone has to take the bull by the horns, as Jacob would say, on that team. And he has been doing a little bit well. So you're like, well, why is his value jumped up? It seems like it's a lot higher than it has in his career. He's been making a little bit of jumps each year, but this year has been pretty decent. And it's like, what's changed? The biggest change that he's finally done this year that I really appreciate, that I was always concerned about, is, again, as I talked about earlier in the episodes, is his steal rate. He's at, I believe, 1.7 steals this year. He's always been close to maybe a steal or under. And that's what's been the struggle bus for him this season. So, yes, thank you, LT. So he's 1.7 steals this year. If you look at his prior years before that, he struggled to get one. So that's what his value is perceived to jump so high on this year. And the reason why is because steals is very valid, or is very valid to have in all formats, honestly, because, again, we talked about the Z scores and what's important in a fantasy format. It's easy to shoot three-pointers, right? But is it really easy to get the high steal rate? And you don't really typically get that from a lot of players. So if you're scoring a lot of points, getting threes, and you're getting steals, that is going to boost up your value quickly. And I think he's around the 35-ish ADP, this year. I had him pegged as a top 45-ish player this year. I think that's around the fair bet that he finishes at. He could be a little bit better, but the steals is good. Dynasty formats, he is a player that you're going to start looking at. If you're in a startup dynasty format, he's going to go up in the 40s or probably earlier. You got to take him serious. And the funny thing is he's still actually very young still. And I know last year there was some points of the season or even the year before that people were starting to get irritated and frustrated because it was almost like he was losing his starting job. And I forgot who it was at the point in time, but he really wasn't. He would I forgot what the coach was doing. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Denver a few years ago. Was it Mike Malone or was it Malone was playing around with Jokic's minutes at one point in time? I don't know what that was about, but it seemed like the same thing was kind of happening to Jamal Murray for a little bit. But he is a player that if he keeps his steal rate this high for the future, I'm going to be honest with you, he's going to there's the ceiling. He could be a potential in the dynasty format. You could see him as a top 25 player. If his steal rate sustains like this in the future, let's go ahead and believe his points and three-pointers can go up too. And that's something I can see. He's not even averaging more points, much more points this year, but just to have that steal rate alone, I can see him easily getting more points in three. So that's the orange I'm juicing here this evening. And Jacob, I'll pass you the ball if there's an orange you want, or oranges you want to juice on today.
Oh, I do have some oranges. Absolutely. I wanted to squeeze those two oranges on the two suspended players here, John Collins and DeAndre Ayton. Starting with Ayton. Now, the reason why I wanted to squeeze the orange on these two is twofold. First, if you want to trade for them right now. You can't trade for them once they're only a week away from coming back, because the owner held on for that long. There's no way that they're going to give him up for pennies. So if you want them, then trade for them right now. So with DeAndre Ayton, the Suns desperately need him. He's only played one game this year, and in that one game, he went, I believe, I can't see those stats, but I believe he had 18 points and 11 rebounds, right? And 4 blocks. I mean, this guy's going to have a great year, and I know that he wanted to take a lot more threes, and so he is itching to come back. He is raring to come back. So I think he's definitely going to be a steal if you can grab him. He comes back on December 17th, so that's in about less than 2 weeks now. So if you can get him. So there was a listener earlier today who pulled off a 2-for-1 deal with the guy in last place, and the guy in last place has Ayton. So more likely than not, whoever has Ayton in your league is probably in last to second to third to last place and is desperate and is like, I don't know if I can hold on for 2 more weeks. Why don't you go ahead and float him a trade that's fair, but still you are getting value as long as you can hold off until then, for sure. So the Suns right now, their starting centers, Saric and Frank the Tank, they are not defensive demons at all. So even though Frank and Dario had great games tonight, they had barely any stock stats. So, they let the Magic score 128 points. Rubio's there. Oubre's there, two great defenders. And if you add Ayton there, I think the Suns can be real contenders there, as long as they get back Ayton. Ayton soon. Sorry about that. And then really quick on Collins. He comes back December 23rd, which is almost 3 weeks away, which is kind of going to be tougher to trade for. But again, you're probably going to be trading with an owner who's probably low in the standings and can use some help right now. So if you can afford to do that, trade for him right now. You can't trade him with a few days, like when it comes to December 17th and expect him to accept the deal, So, always be proactive. I know it's a risk, but if you want those guys, get them now. When Collins comes back, he was averaging he was averaging 17 and 8 with around 2 blocks a game. That's going to be monstrous once he comes back, because Trae Young needs another scorer on that team. We've seen the Hawks struggle, and I know that they're rebuilding, but they really need Collins, because Collins and Young are definitely their 2 building blocks. So once he comes back, he's going to ball out for sure. So again, I'm going to juice that orange. Trade for those guys right now. If you want to get a steal, if you want to take those owners for a ride, as Starks would say, trade for them now, or else it'll be too late, guys. So saying that, I'm going to pass the ball in between my legs here, all fancy like, right there to you, LT.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate that. I caught it. I'm not gonna spectacular pass, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna juice the orange. I got 2 players I'm gonna juice the orange on. One's gonna be Derrick Rose. The second is gonna be Carmelo Anthony.
Here we go.
I'm just joking.
I
want to see y'all's faces, man. No. I'm just
juice
joking.
That orange.
I'm just joking. Well, I'm not going to take too much time here on these orange juicers, but I am going to just go over 2 players here that in redraft formats gave you some crazy value so far this year. The first one, of course, my rival goes to the same squad I was going to, but Will Barton this year has been absolutely crazy for you as far as value, where you were able to pick him up at. He's giving you his averages this year. He's averaging a steal a game, 14.8 points, 3.5 assists, and 7. This is those sneaky stats I want you to know about. 7.3 rebounds on average this year.
Nice.
So he's getting you those extra rebounds and from the guard position, and you love to see that for sure. And he's also hitting those threes at a high clip, and his efficiency rates. I wish he could be a little bit more efficient, but it's not bad. It's not terrible. So Will Barton is just killing it right now on the efficiency levels as far as where you pick them up at and what he's doing for you. So that's one of those guys there is Will Barton. And then also I'm going to juice the orange here, and I may pay for this, but I am going to juice the orange just a tiny bit on Sacramento. And let's go ahead and move over to this guy here, Buddy Hield. I'm going to juice the orange. I'm going to juice the orange on Buddy Hield because I know, guys. Look, I know everyone's looking at me. Why are you juicing the orange on him? He is slow. He's coming in a slow start, right? But if you look at his previous years, he's already scoring more points than he was, averaging more points than he did last year. And he's starting slow, right? His field goal percentage is way lower than it was last year. His 3-point percentage is way lower than it is last year. Look at these stats. Everything is just so much lower. It may be because people are starting to, say, hey, he's pretty good. Nah, right. I think he just had a slow start. Once they get Marvin Bagley, everything starts gelling together. I feel like those field goal percentages and those 3-point percentages are going to raise up. So I'm going to juice the orange on Buddy Hield that the rest of the year, he's actually going to have a monster rest of his year as he gets those field goal percentages back to his normal, back to that 44, 45%. I see him trying to get those averages above 23, maybe 24 average points per game, and getting that 3-point percentage clip up as well, above 40% for sure as the season progresses. So keep an eye out for him. and his steal rate, if he can just slightly get that closer to 1 steal per game, I know that's hard for him, but if he can just, use those hands just a little bit more, you feel me? Just a little bit more. But I know, but that's like, wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, but no, but I do want to juice orange on him because I do think he is a slow start, but he's going to start picking it up and have a crazy rest of the year. And I'm going to pass the rock over to you, Stark.
That's some nice juices. Juicing some of them oranges, fellas. That was pretty good. All right, so we're going to go to the commercial. In the commercial, after we get to the commercial, we'll get to the clutch shots. All right, in the clutch shots, we'll kind of touch up on maybe a game that we want to highlight real quick on, so each of us will touch up on. But the commercial, as you guys know, check out newlifefantasy.com. Join as a member. Join on the mailing list, so that way when an article is dropped, you guys can check it out on the website and be notified either via email or text message. We don't just do fantasy basketball. We do fantasy football and baseball. We have the Faith Corner there too, so check that out. Also, make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Not only subscribe with the Sub-Zero button, hit the bell, comment below. Also, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you guys support us. It really helps us out on a daily basis to get you guys the feed, or excuse me, the content each day. And obviously, Take a Ride podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that. Helps us out and do everything else. We're available in pretty much most podcast formats, right? So I think I said everything there. So I am working on an article too, again, on actually some sell high candidates that I think should be some players you should consider. And these are players that are inside the top 100 currently at this year. I'm going to probably hurt some people's feelings on some of these players in particular. Obviously, as LT has on the site, the article I just dropped on Blake Griffin and the regression that is coming his way. Sorry for those. I don't try to put, I try to be real and honest and transparent on my logic on players. So check that out. And hopefully maybe you can, I did use a massive cheat code on some potential trade targets with Blake Griffin. If you check it out on the site, newlifefantasy.com, but some sell high players, I will have that done sometime this week. So be on the lookout for that. And it actually might be a player that LT spoke about. I might just go ahead and add the player because he's my rival. So it only makes sense to add him to just put more fuel to the fire with our rivalry. It could be Will Barton, right? I just now thought of that. So we'll see. I don't even know if Barton's inside the top 100 currently right now, but he has been doing good. I think he may be, but either or, I'll make sure to let the rival feel that. So the clutch shot that I'll take here is a game in particular. I'll just go ahead and dive into it real quick. It is the game that I seen. What was it? My goodness. It was the Orlando and Phoenix game. Orlando wins. So I would say, I guess you can almost consider this a surprise, 128-114. Your guys' boy, this is why I had to clutch it up on. Aaron Gordon had himself a legit game. I think it was an outlier, though, because he made just about every shot he took. 13 for 15, 32 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. So definitely a good game. Yeah, right. And just real quick, one more additional clutch shot I will take is DeAnthony Melton he received 30 minutes tonight. So just be on the lookout for that. He started the second half. So that's an additional clutch shot that maybe you guys might, if you're in a decent spot in the standings, he's another speculative ad. In pretty much 12 to 14 man leagues, I wouldn't rush to get him in an 8 and 10 man league, but just look at those potential players. So that's my clutch shot. I'll pass you the ball, Jacob, if there's a quick game you want to touch up on the player.
That was clutch, brother. Yeah. So I wanted to clutch shot over to the Bulls game. I wanted to squeeze the orange a little bit, but my clutch shot is Lauri Markkanen. This is his second game in a row. That's pretty good. He was struggling decently. Now, I will say, and it pains me to say this, if you've been looking for a time to move him, now is probably the time. I would say stand pat because I am a huge believer, and I do think that he rights the ship here. This is his second game in a row of having a decent game. I mean, he went 15-5 with 4 snipes and 2 blocks. So I mean, like he's doing well over the past 2 games, but over the past 2 games have been 2 teams that are pretty inferior. So he's known to do this against inferior teams, and then he kind of slows down with the better team. So I would definitely look out for his next game. You know, like I'm always a guy who looks for 3 games in a row. That's a trend, you know, like whether that's a good trend or a negative trend. So definitely look out for his next game to see if he's someone that you want to buy, or if you want to sell high if you're looking to move him. But I would definitely keep him or try to buy low on him right now if you can. So that is my clutch shot. Also, if you guys, look out, I'm going to be posting the weekly streamer for next week, but don't overlook this week. You can always look back on our streamer article and see who's playing back-to-back games. I know that most of you are almost out of your maximum moves per week. So saying that, you want to get a guy that plays on both Saturday and Sunday. If you only have, let's say, 1 move left, it's like, well, I need to maximize my game. So let's try to get that guy who plays Saturday and Sunday, which I believe the Mavericks play on Saturday and Sunday, and I believe the Sixers do. But you can fact check me on that if you check out the streamers article here after this podcast. All right. So that is my clutch shot there, brother. I'm going to pass the ball there to you, LT.
Appreciate that, man. Just to touch up on a couple things on each game. Aaron Gordon, man. It's one of my guys, right?
Aaron Gordon,
man. Gorda, 4 arms. Hopefully this starts a trend for him, and he actually has been playing better. So keep your eyes out for him. I say Jais have been activated.
I won't.
I know you won't, but that's exactly why that's exactly why we're rivals, right? I still believe in him. Yeah, because he has
I'm
the
glad
potential.
you do.
He has the potential. But keep eye on him.
More eggs.
And then so that was what I was gonna be my original. I was gonna be my original clutch shot. But I'm going to go ahead and move on over to this Miami-Boston game. And I want to just highlight this game because I don't know if people understand this, but Boston and Miami are, I think, 1-2 in the East. I believe they're 1-2. So this was a potential.
Actually, it's the Bucks 1 and
Bucks
then
won,
Boston
that's right.
2. And I think the Heat, so I think it's 2-3.
2-3.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Bucks are 1. 2-3 matchup. So this is. You know, no one was expecting the Miami Heat to be this good, so I just wanted to touch up on Jimmy Buckets. This guy is, I think, one of the most underrated fantasy assets so far this year. What he's doing on a per game average is absolutely crazy. You got to remember, he started off a little late, had his child born, and took some time off in the beginning. But as soon as he came in, he has been lights out. He has just been killing it. Scored 37 points in this game with 2 swipes. Just out crazy. But also just to also show, he was a juice to orange candidate. Jaylen Brown. If you have Jaylen Brown, he is, after Gordon G-Hay went down, he is just killing it, man. He is just killing it. 5 snipes tonight, 31 points, led the team in scoring over Tatum and Kemba, even though Kemba tried. But especially in points formats, Jaylen Brown is just he's such a different player without G-Hay on the court right now. And it sounds like the coaches asked him to be more aggressive. So I have that's all I got for tonight on my clutch shot. Starks, back over to you, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I had to juice the orange on one more clutch shot here.
Okay.
And real quick to the listeners, we didn't get to touch on the East surprise team. Obviously, Miami is one of the surprises this year.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I want to just talk about, a couple of other players to tie it into one. As a guy that I talk about and I can't stand, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Shirley Temple, Garrett Temple had a really good game. So if you still streaming him and holding him, just keep deploying him until Kyrie in the game comes back. That's if Kyrie ever comes back. They say the next week or two now, but man, I want all out And obviously Jacob's boy there, Dinwiddie, is doing excellent as well. But another guy, I got this question earlier, so I tied into this as well, about, Terry Rozier or Devontae Graham. You remember when I asked you guys which one? And I'm probably taking Graham, you guys are taking Rozier. They both had a really good game, but that Graham line, man, them Graham crackers, he took 16 attempt snipes this game. And that is something I will always juice the orange on, man, really hard on him. And honestly, I think he's like second or third in the league with 3-point attempts. And he's not too far behind. Well, he is pretty far behind Harden. Harden's like 80 to 100 3-point attempt shots over everybody else in the NBA. So that's my additional clutch shot. You guys can find me on my Twitter handle. It's at Starks_industry. You can also find me on Instagram, One Closing Hero. Give me a follow and then ask me questions, and I'll answer them at a prompt time, the best of my ability. And I'll pass you the ball there, Jacob. Where can I find you out there, brother?
Thank you, brother. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Ain't Done Yet, and done is spelled Dunne. Be on the lookout for my daily streamers here tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday. I post those just to help you guys out, like a little boost in the week, and I'm always available to answer any questions as well. So God bless you guys, and see you around.
All right, and pass the ball there to LT. Where can they find you at there, man?
You find me on IG, Instagram, at _Sage Network _. You can also find me on Twitter at Sage Network X. I am. If there's any issues with the video, YouTube is back online. This will be uploaded tonight, right away. But if there are anything issues with the video, just know it will be fixed and updated. I appreciate you guys excusing our dust while we get everything hammered out and straightened up for you guys. But once the quality gets there, trust me, it'll be well worth the wait. So I appreciate you guys, your patience, and you have a wonderful night.
Nice. And yeah, you guys make sure you sub-zero that subscribe button for us on YouTube. And again, with that being said, you guys have a good evening, morning, afternoon, and take a ride.